'Twas 3 nights before Christmas, and when the referee blew his whistle, both teams served up an absolute cracker. Now, a recap of that game would probably take me a good half hour, so I'm not going to bother, and we'll just jump right into this one to talk about Raith Rovers 4, Ayr United 4. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me today we have Weir Wish You a Merry Christmas. It's Robbie Weir. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very well, Duncan. How are you?
Yeah, very well, man, very well. We have Good King Wenceslas. Lesie Mabon is here too. How are you, Leslie?
Oh, ho, holy crap, I still haven't calmed down from last night.
Good. Muppets Christmas Carol Alison Smith is here too. Hiya, Carol, how are you?
I'm very good and been compared to the Muppets Christmas carols. Brighten my day.
Good, excellent. It's beginning to look a Scot like Christmas. It's Scott Fleming. How are you, mate?
Aye, not too bad, mate. Cheers.
Excellent. And finally, the stockings were hung by the fire with Blair Hopcroft. How are you, mate?
Much like the team going into last night, I am hungover.
Fair enough. If you need to dip out at any point, I'm sure we'll forgive you eventually. So Blair, let's stick with you actually, because you weren't on the preview pod. So kind of kick us off with just kind of your thoughts going into this one and how you thought when you saw, or sorry, what you thought when you saw the team lineups.
So yeah, it's been a kind of recurring theme this season. I've used the phrase worryingly buoyant. Starting to feel a little bit kind of silly today, but genuinely like had no fear at all, no concerns. Teams playing well, everybody seems to be fit. Like it seemed to be a bit of a no-brainer. I actually had a really nice moment in the afternoon. I went into Marks and Spencer's up at the retail park, and it was hoaching. And I hate the shops when it's hoaching. It was bodies everywhere, and out the mist comes Sean Byrne with a trolley, and this is genuinely true. Calm as you like, moseying through all the old dears in Marks and Spencer's, and I had that line from you in my head about he just sees everything in slow motion. I was like, this is a good omen. It was not a good omen, but team lineup was exactly what I was kind of hoping it would be. To be fair, Jack Hamilton in for Callum Smith seemed the obvious change. Again, we'll go through the game in a lot more detail, I'm sure. But no, I didn't see that coming. Did not see it in the slightest.
I'm exactly the same. It was the lineup I think that I predicted on Thursday night, and so yeah, absolutely no complaints from me either. And in terms of the kind of opening exchanges, I mean, really, first kind of 25 minutes, there wasn't really much happened. I don't think that was really a window into what was going to happen across the rest of the game. But Leslie, if you give us your thoughts, please, on that kind of the opening period and how the game began.
I think, Ayr probably actually started a bit stronger, and you could see they were up for it, and very quickly realised they've actually got a pretty decent set of attacking options. I mean, I know that the Ayr fans grumble about Lee Bullen, but fair play for assembling. I mean, you've got Chalmers, Amarty. It sounds like we're off the red-nosed reindeer, but I don't mean it to. Dowds, and there's a lot. McGeady as well, and they started very well. And I think it took us a wee bit of time to settle down. I think Ayr probably started stronger. I think we then did settle down a bit. Hamilton had a really good header on goal that was pretty routine for the keeper. But yeah, I think I kind of realised pretty quickly this was not going to be us strolling through, and it was going to be a pretty close encounter.
I mean, we talked in the preview pod about Ayr's kind of attacking options, but I think me in particular, I was a little bit dismissive. Like, don't know how they're going to get them all at the park at the same time. But I tell you, the one in particular that impressed me in the first half was Aidan McGeady. I just wasn't expecting him to be very, very mobile. I mean, I've just not.
I was thinking earlier on that see with players like that, sometimes players have to raise their game and reach a certain level, and then there's a lot of lads in the lower leagues where you'll look and you'll see them play and you think, oh, they could potentially go on and maybe kick on to the top flight, but they're too inconsistent for it. Whereas there's other players, and we saw it before with sort of almost like Christoph Berra, where they've played at a higher level before, and people are kind of dismissive, like, oh no, he won't be that good. But then he comes down and you see his class, and that's the same with McGeady last night. Like, he's not got the pace again really so much anymore, but the technical ability, he was light years ahead of anything on that pitch last night, just in terms of technical ability, maybe other than Chalmers. But yeah, I think you've got to give credit Ayr for their approach, and how they went ahead, and just how they came into the game.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing with McGeady. I was surprised at actually the pace that he did have. Especially when you see that they're lining up like that and that he's playing in the middle, and you think, right, they're going to have to just basically use him, like a netball player. Like, he's not going to move when he's got the ball. He's just going to be the kind of central point. But actually, you could see it. You see it with the guys who manage, because obviously 10 years ago, Aidan McGeady was just all about pace, out wide, running at people. But you can see now he's choosing when to run and he's when not to, kind of conserving his energy. And the fact that he was the one to come off at half time, presumably, he's not able to do that for 90 minutes. But I was very impressed. And I mean, that takes us into the first goal. So obviously it's McGeady who does, literally does all the running with the ball. But it's also, I think, a huge contributing factor to that is the other players that they've got. Because you can see so McGeady's already beyond Sean Byrne, and as he's kind of bearing down on the defence, Murray is with Logan Chalmers, and Brown is with Anton Dowds. And you can see that neither of them can leave their man, and that's why McGeady gets to come forward kind of unchallenged.
A really clever, I was just going to say, a really clever run from Chalmers as well. He goes basically from side to side and drags Murray with him. And you can almost see that moment where Murray goes, oh, I don't know if I can go all the way over there. And he gets kind of caught between one and the other as McGeady unleashes the shot.
Yeah, it's very kind of subtle. He's not doing any kind of body check or anything, but you can see the point where Murray's instinct is to step across is the exact point that Chalmers blocks that run. Yeah. So Murray really has no option but to stick with Chalmers. Scott, give us your thoughts on that goal, please.
I must say I was actually raging at that goal because I thought that for some reason Sean Byrne, and couldn't mind if it was Stanton or somebody else, but Sean Byrne was the most noticeable that was just missing for that and was just slowly running back trying to get McGeady, and we just kept stepping off, and then at some point he's going to unleash a shot if you're just going to keep backing off, and then fair play, it's a decent finish, but at the same time, we can't be just backing off so long. I mean, he ran for the halfway line almost to the edge of the box without even anybody within a yard of him, which is just criminal, to be honest. And it was so unlike us this season as well, because we're usually a bit of a pest and in everybody's grill. And yet, for some reason, we'll talk about it obviously later as well, but I think all the goals were pretty avoidable last night and it was just our own downfall and not closing anybody down. So I thought, that first one kind of really annoyed me at the fact that we just didn't seem to put any pressure, because he hit one maybe 5-10 minutes before it, McGeady, and it was going miles wide because we put pressure on him. And then at this one, he's got so much time, and somebody that's been at that high level, when you give him time, no matter if he's 30 or 20, he's going to at least look like it's going to go in. So, no, it was pretty annoying, that one.
It's one of these that sometimes you think, like, if you can run 50 yards and stick this in the goal, then kind of fair play. But I think the problem with this is it happened multiple times in the same game, and I think we'll maybe take the second goal as our opportunity to kind of expand on that whole piece, because I think there's a couple of things to say on that in terms of the wider selection and how the defence in the midfield were set up. But for now, let's just move past that first goal, because very, very quickly the Rovers got back onto level terms, and it's a really lovely move through the midfield, and it's the man of the moment, Sam Stanton, who finishes it. Carol, if you could give us your thoughts on that goal, please.
Well, I thought, just like everyone's mentioned just before, Ayr had slowed us down. They were dragging us out position and slowing us down. That seemed to be their tactic. But then when Sam Stanton, the build up to that goal and that goal going in, I mean, I know we're only talking like a minute from Ayr scoring, but it seemed to just be a complete change of pace and went, all right, guys, we've been sleeping a bit here. They know what we're going to do. We need to change it up. But they never seemed to, it was a beautiful, beautiful goal. And it was, gave you that sort of, right, okay, here we go. Here it goes. And then I'll let someone else continue before I bring this back down. Keep on the high, on the happy side.
It was.
Yeah,
I was going to say it was a beautiful moment. Like in a game that was to and fro and all the rest of it. It's one of those. I've spoken about it before. One of those wonderful things as a football fan. They're still celebrating as we score, and it's just such a lovely kind of sit yourselves down, boys. Like one of those kind of moments. Sam did so well, so well to take the ball before the keeper. It looked a little bit like as well. He was the way he did it as well. It was that kind of take me down. Do you know what I mean? It's that moment of he nicked in, he took the ball. The only option the keeper's got is to swipe his feet from underneath him, which is an automatic penalty and potentially a red card. So the keeper kind of doesn't, throw the hand out. But the finish, it'll get lost after that game, mainly because of what's about to obviously come in this conversation. But Sam Stanton's finish, do you know what I mean? He's so kind of off balance, and the fact he puts it through the boy's legs and into the goal, and to do it right after they scored. It was a lovely goal. Lovely.
See if we're going to take the positives, and you can carry this across all the goals that we scored from open play, because there's definitely positives and negatives that you take out of that game. The assist from Vaughan for that first goal, absolutely brilliant. The assist from Ross Milne for the second goal, great delivery. And then we'll obviously come on to Connolly's work for the third. But it was just like you say, Blair. I think it's a ball, and Stanton does really well just to get it by the keeper. And then you can see them in that sort of split second thinking, oh, I'm kind of being put into a position where if I bring him down, giving away a penalty and risking a red card, particularly the keeper. But yeah, just with that Ayr defence, they were there to be got at. You saw it in sort of different moments throughout. And I think later on in the first half, to sort of carry on, we saw that before we did get our sort of second goal, you could see McGinty was a liability in there. Like, just he stood out like a sore thumb, because we should have had a penalty from the Jack Hamilton one, I felt, where it gets brought down in the box. And then we start being a bit more aggressive in terms of how we're going about our business. We start getting a bit more forward. And then it's almost like McGinty just loses the rag. And it's almost like watching someone try to push their luck, because he has that sort of, you see the penalty, and then the referee, there's the one on Stanton, which I was amazed was not a booking. And then it comes to the red card, and he doesn't even try for the ball. He's like, I saw an Ayr fan on Pine Bovril try to claim that it was harsh. He's got his leg, and it's pretty much a leg breaker, that tackle, if he lands it a wee bit higher. Very, very lucky that Easton was up and back on his feet, moving about very quickly. McGinty was just an absolute animal last night. I don't think any Rovers fan's going to tell you any differently. He just looked completely, just a complete jobber of a player. And
it's. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a leap of critical insight to look at a 4-4 and say that both teams are better going forward than they are at the back. But it's definitely really, really obvious watching that game, as you say, in that first half in particular. You could see neither side particularly comfortable with their defending. Frankie Masonda, anytime I've seen him for Ayr United, looks half the player he did in a lot of the games he played for us. I was really, really disappointed when he left, to the point when, him and Benedictus left in the same window. And if I could have only had one of them, I'd have kept Masonda out of the two. Yeah. But he's just, I feel like anytime I see him, he's got a mistake in him. And, him and McGinty last night, really, the pair of them not defending as a kind of unit at all. Really just, two individuals kind of doing whatever they can. The other point, sorry, just to go back to Stanton's goal for a second, I think a lot of your good strikers in this division have that kind of forethought to take the little touch. I don't know many of the midfielders do. Like, it's such a clever little touch to shift that away. I think most midfielders, when they're played through like that, just think, oh, this is a chance, and go first time and try and kind of force it past the keeper. So the little touch is excellent to kind of move past that.
The finish as well. Like, I honestly don't think he'll get enough credit, because that little touch, like you say, is clever, but it takes him really narrow, like really narrow.
Yeah.
He's almost on the goal line by the time he kind of hits the shot, and he takes it with his left. So it's not like he's, you know, turning his body and playing it back across. He's taking it with his left, and there's a defender on the line. And like I say, that movement is his whole motion is taking him to the left, so he's kind of off balance. So to even get the finish on, you'll see that bit of play 10 times in a season, and 9 times out of 10, the boy will splaff it into the side net, because he'll Snapchat it, because everything's pulling him left, and he'll try and hit across it, and he'll not get it on target. So to get it on target in the first place, like an insane little bit of skill, that just, he made it look so easy.
And from the kind of highs of that goal, with an immediate low almost, with the injury that Sam then picks up. I mean, I think it looked fairly not innocuous necessarily, but obviously there's no malice in it. They're both going for the ball. He gets there first, the guy catches him. I don't know if it's actually the impact, or if it's the way that he lands. Lesley, were you watching on Raith TV last night?
I was, yeah. And I mean, it was
a replay
hard
on that
to see. Yeah, I mean, it was hard to see from Raith TV. I mean, anybody else who was watching online, I don't know if you may have a different view, but just because of where the cameras are, it was hard to kind of see in any great detail what happened. But again, you know, it did look very concerning. I think, like Davey was saying in the commentary, when the reaction of the players tells you a lot, and there was a lot of worry and a lot of panic. And then, you know, it went to the dugout cam and you see them readying the stretcher, and you're thinking, uh-oh. And, you know, I think the only kind of silver lining was, you know, he was able to kind of come off and put a wee bit of weight on it. But no, I mean, didn't see anything. I mean, I would just agree. I don't think that incident there was any malice. There, you know, it was a coming together. But it was concerning from the online viewing too.
Yeah, it's as you say, definitely. I mean, it was good to see that he was up. He wasn't walking well, but he was at least walking, and, you know, kind of supported after that. And it seems like both from Ian Murray's post-match, and also I think John Greer managed to chin the club doctor at some point as well for an update, that it's kind of very early days, very difficult to tell, but certainly not it's not like bad news confirmed, which I think in the immediate aftermath you could see. The fear is that, like, you know, it's something really serious, and that straight away you know that. Whereas at least I think it's going to be a case of a couple of days, see if there's swelling or whatever, see if it comes down, and see what happens.
I'm going to add in a caveat here. If anyone sees Sam Stanton walking about in a moon boot, we do have previous examples of players going about in moon boots just as a precautionary measure. I am just putting that out there initially, right? Because next thing you know, I'll go into Pie and Bovril. It'll be a Tuesday or Wednesday morning. Oh my God, I saw Stanton in a moon boot. And you're like, right, okay, we'll just calm it down.
You'll not see Stanton anyway.
Aye,
he's an enigma. Do you know what I mean? He's like a vanishing act. You'll never see him anyway. He'll be fine.
But that's why we love him.
Yeah,
exactly.
I must admit that, as Les said, the reaction of the players, I was gutted, like genuinely gutted, sitting in the south stand. I was like, oh no. And it was the moment, I'm pretty sure it was Ross Millen, just head in hands, and I was like, oh no. Yeah. It looked all the world to me like, remember when Vaughan did his ACL up at Brechin?
Yeah.
And you could just see I think it was Nisbet and that. They were just like totally gone. Like the players were shaking. It looked for all the world like it was a really bad one. The way Sam went down, he's no the kind of player that rolls about. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously got a really sore one, but you've just got to hope that it's an impact, you know, a bit of bruising, dead leg, maybe a week or so, maybe 2, and just kind of rest up and feel better and come back strong, because I mean, as we're about to go through the rest of the game, bloody hell, we missed them.
Absolutely. I think the kind of small mercies involved is that Ross Matthews is kind of back on the scene. And obviously, he's not had any game time at all. But we spoke a couple of weeks ago in the kind of hypothetical that Ross Matthews is probably profile-wise the closest you'll get as a replacement for Sam Stanton. So, 2 or 3 months ago, we just wouldn't have had anyone. So we need to be, kind of reintroduced gradually, but at least we do have an option there to kind of fill that role.
I would love to see a Ross Matthews return. Like, I know that he's on the bench, but how good will that be to see him back playing football regularly? And again, we want Stanton to be back as quick as possible, but we know that Ross Matthews can do it if he does need to come in. And it's just, fingers crossed that it works out for him, right?
And in terms of the game, I'm going to bundle the next few incidents together, because there was a bit of a kind of wild period there between Stanton's, or sort of the challenge that caused Stanton's injury, through a really heavy challenge on Dylan Easton, I think, that went kind of completely unpunished. There was then that penalty claim, Robbie, that you mentioned as well.
Jack Hamilton got booked for that, didn't he?
He didn't get booked. I was almost certain he was going to get booked, because he very clearly got right in the referee's grill about it. But somehow didn't get booked, which I think is always a sign that the referee knows there's at least some doubt in his mind. And then up until the red card. So that must have only been about 5 minutes. But it felt entirely like the referee caused that, with just mismanagement of the game. Scott, I think you said that last night as well. So you want to come in first and kind of give us your thoughts on any, or indeed all, of those little kind of mini incidents in that sort of 5-minute period.
Aye, it was pretty much what we were chatting about where I was sitting. John sits in front of us and he said the exact same. Like, it was from that tackle that was on Easton, the first one. I actually thought how quickly and how forcefully he went into the challenge. I actually thought it was a worse challenge than the one that he got sent off for. But I think they're equally as bad when you look at the highlights. But I think the referee just made a rod for his own back there. Like, it was, if you're not going to even book the boy for that, like, I don't even think he spoke to the boy that made the challenge. He spoke to the captain. And it's like, right, calm the boys down. Well, it's a booking challenge. It's not even the fact that the reaction of the crowd. I get people always will want cards no matter what at times, but it wasn't even there was folk calling for a red card straight away. It was, so you're going, well, it's minimum a yellow then. But then the fact he didn't book anybody, you're going, right, he needs to control this game, because this could get away from him. And 2 minutes later, it got away from him. And the fact that just there was nonsense going on for at least 5 minutes, and then the red card happened. That challenge does not happen if it's dealt with there and then, because he's then going, right, this referee's on top of us now. Whereas he spoke to him, but that was about it. It was just, and you could tell as soon as Stanton went off, Dave probably went, right, now it's focus on Easton. And straight away, I felt a wee bit sorry for Dylan, but at the same time, it's going to come when you're getting all these headlines. You're going to get some rough treatment at times. And I could see him moaning eventually about it. And fair play, because he was getting up and getting on with it, but you're going, right, we need some protection for the referee here, because if we're not going to get it, then I fear that somebody's going to get another injury here. But no, I just felt that the referee just lost it for the last sort of 10, 15 minutes of that first half. And then I didn't think the penalty was a penalty. I thought he kind of went down a bit soft, but I also thought he was going to get booked for the way that he reacted. But again, for some reason, kept his cards in his pocket at that point.
But it's just stuff like, to go back to that sort of period that you've mentioned, it was stuff like, for example, one of the players went down on the railway stand side with a head knock. We kick the ball out, and then the referee gives a drop ball, and you're thinking, this guy's not got a clue. He's just making it up as he goes. And I get that officiating's like a difficult job, but he definitely lost the run of that game, Craig Napier. It was just like,
that actually, the second half, I was surprised. He came out and seemed to be kind of fine second half, but it absolutely lost the plot for that kind of, as you say, 10-15 minute spell. Scott, I agree with what you're saying about those two challenges, because I thought the same. I thought the first one, there was like loads of pace and loads of power. And to be fair, both players are going in, and it's the chance you take. Dylan Easton gets the ball, and the man clatters through him. I think that's a yellow card every day of the week. It has to be, because that's where the real risk is when you're going in with that much force. And then the second one, his foot is higher, but there's nowhere near as much pace in it. That Dylan Easton is running at full tilt. McGinty's not really. What I mean, his foot is high, and it's one of these that I think if he gives a yellow card for both, I think we are still talking about it today, but we're not jumping up and down daft. But equally, given that he's given McGinty that red card, there's not a chance you're getting that back on appeal. You know, it's one that you could justify either way. But I disagree with you, Scott, on the penalty. I thought it was a penalty. I think looking at it back, McGinty gets knocked over. Like McGinty trips. So McGinty's foot is out and he trips Hamilton. And then McGinty is then knocked off balance by it in a way that he wouldn't have been if it was, a dive or whatever. Because I thought at the time from the stand, I thought it was like, it's a little bit soft. But he definitely trips him, and he definitely kind of takes away the chance that Hamilton has to shoot. Blair, do you want to give us your thoughts just on that kind of period, between the injury and the red card?
Yeah, so I'm gonna disagree with everybody. So Scott, I agree with Duncan. Definitely think that's a penalty. For me, it was that kind of as Hamilton's left leg, it's his natural running motion. So his weight shifting to his left hand side, and then the foot takes it. And so his natural thing it's like when you're a kid and you just do that thing where you knock somebody and they just end over. It was one of those. It looked slow and it looked kind of like a dive or whatever, but actually, I thought it was a penalty. From the stand, I thought the first one was a red. I absolutely thought the first one was a red. I thought he was late. I thought he was high. I genuinely thought there was malice in it, actually. I felt that there was a clear decision by a couple of the boys in their team to kick lumps at them a wee bit. And it's
there was a hit list. There was a hit list, I think.
It's a natural thing. Like, you can't blame them. It's football. That's what happens at this level. Do you know what I mean? You've got talented players, and they're going to... The Sam Stanton one wasn't at all, like you said. It was a coming together. There was nothing in that. But I tell you the one thing, the replay of the red card doesn't do it justice because of the angle. So where I sit in the south stand, we're just above the sort of goalie's left post, so the kind of railway side, and up quite high. So we were right in line with it. And his foot is high, but it's also away from his body. He's seen Easton, he's passed him, and he's literally just stuck a leg on. Like, there's no attempt to play the ball. It's high. And it's not a natural movement. It's like he knows he's past him, so he just sticks a foot on him and takes him down. I thought it was a red card all day, and I think had they not given a red, I'd have been livid. Like, I'd have been absolutely raging.
But it's so dangerous as well, though. Like, totally. Just the way that he's gone in, and because Easton is travelling at momentum, you can't be completely missing the ball and then planting studs into players. Like, it's just, I get that there's like occasions where the player will slip by and you're going to catch them. That's not catching someone. That's going in with intent. Like, let's not make any...
I was going to say the one at Hamilton, in the cup game.
Aye, with Kildare, was it?
Kildare, that really stupid. Like, what? You're never getting away with that. Like, what do you think you're doing at that point? But I thought the referee was honking in the first half. He's the biggest case of wee man syndrome that you'll see in this league, because he looks like he's 12, and he does, though. He looks so young. Like,
he would have got a selection box.
Yes, he would have passed for 16. Like, he's one of them, because I think we had him. Was it Inverness away? The game that we beat them up there this season. He was a referee, I'm sure. I maybe got that wrong, but we've definitely had him already this season. I remember looking at him and thinking, God, he looks like a mascot. Like, he looks so young. And the way that he dealt with Hamilton when Hamilton asked for that penalty, it's everything I hate about referees. It's that you come over here and you stand here and you listen to me thing. Like, there's just a way to deal with people, and I don't think that's it.
But by the same token, Go on,
But
Leslie.
John had said this as well. You know, he does this thing, like when he's going to make a big decision, he does a wee run around and he kind of takes himself away from everybody. And he sort of steals himself up because he's a wee boy who has to go and ask for his dinner money back from a bigger boy. He's got that annoying little run he does before he does a big call.
It was Queen's Park, wasn't it? Queen's Park.
Yeah, Queen's Park, I think.
Yes.
Sandy, who sits behind me, was saying it, I think. But what gets me is the fact that like he just comes across as really dismissive of players. And I don't, again, the players will know themselves like what he's actually like as a person. But like if players go across, he'll be like flinging arms about, like, you get away, you get away, you get away. And I get that you need to control it, but at the same time, like he's lost the run of himself with it. In terms of his decision making there. Yeah, it was ironic because like first 15 minutes, me and my mate were saying, yeah, the referee's been all right so far. And then like 15 minutes later, my mate's like, we were totally wrong about that, eh? Aye, we were.
It doesn't sort of mitigate what Sean McGinty does. It doesn't justify his challenge by any means at all. But if he books the boy for the first one on Easton, it doesn't happen. It's actively bad refereeing in terms of managing a game, and I just think it's one of these things I think the referees get in their own heads about sometimes. The thing I really hate hearing when you hear typically when they're talking about Old Firm games, but at derbies at any level, like there'll be a really bad tackle really early on, and they're like, oh well, it's a derby, you can't book somebody for that, and it's like, well, just think about the game as it's happening. It's just a game of football. Treat it equally.
Who was that wee midget that played for the Pars that went through Eddie Malone? Was it, I can't even remember his name.
Falkenham.
Aye, him. That was exactly it. 45 seconds into a game and he's 2 foot Eddie Malone. And you're thinking, well, that's a red card. Didn't even muster a reaction.
And you see it again and again. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's the first challenge in the game. You've got to just treat it equally and set a tone of, you can't be doing that. That's dangerous. And I think that's exactly what happens. He lets him away with one, and that's almost, I think subconsciously as much as anything, that has emboldened Sean McGinty. And then the next thing you know, 2 minutes later, he's flying around with his feet up, and it's, I mean, it doesn't justify that. Sean McGinty has no way he can point to the referee and say, well, that's his fault. But I think, as I say, if he gives the yellow for the first one, that red card doesn't happen. But let's move on from that, from our kind of referee discussion, and get on to one of the assists of the season. I mean, aesthetically as much as anything else, that's as lovely a cross as you're going to see from Ross Millen, and then it's an excellent header as well. I mean, I don't know about you other guys who were in the stand, but it was one of these that as soon as Vaughan got his head to it, I was like, it's such a shame that that's going to go over the bar, because that was a lovely cross, and somehow he's managed to get it, up and over the keeper, but under the bar. Carol, give us your thoughts on that one, please.
I'm quite similar to yourself, but on Raith TV, you saw that cross coming in, and I thought, oh, that's going to just go off his head and it's going to go over the bar, but it's a beautiful cross, and it just hit the back of the net, and that didn't go in, did it? And it was beautiful. It was just, I don't know if he was falling into it or diving into it, but something just brought that ball down under the bar, because originally it was just thought it was going to come across, ping off his head and over into the stand. It was lovely. Not going to see a cross like it.
That's it. And I mean, the keeper's just got no chance for that.
No.
Leslie, you come in on that one as well, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. What I took away from that, and we'll maybe come on to this a bit later in the game as well. I'm 5'6", so I am all here for wee guys scoring headers. And we had 2 from Aidan Connolly down at Capello. We had a couple for Louis last night as well. And it's just a testament to the quality of balls that Millen and Mullen are putting in. I mean, that is just an exquisite ball. And again, it put me in the mind of the one that Josh Mullen put in for Vaughan against Dundee United earlier in the season. It's just a fantastic ball in. I mean, the only other thing I would say is just to go back to something that Robbie picked up on earlier. Last season, we're not scoring so many goals from inside the box. We maybe scored a lot of goals. If we scored 4 goals in a game, we'd have screamers coming in from Connolly and Easton. We are so much more dangerous in the box, and part of it is just the quality of the delivery. So it was a lovely goal and a nice way to end the half.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else want to come in on that goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the header itself was actually, it was more like a curled shot. That's what it felt like when you see it on the highlights. It's like he's just curled it with the outside of the foot into the top corner, but just using the top of his head instead. Very different as the goal that he sealed his hat trick with. But yeah, just again, Ross Milne, fair play. Such a good ball into the box. Just the cross itself, and it's one of those ones where we all know that he's got that in his locker, and it's just nice having a right back that can offer that as well. It's not one of these ones where you'll see a swing and a hit and a hope. There is a bit of culture to it, and an aesthetic degree that he has. So yeah, just a really good goal in general.
Yeah, actually,
it was good as well for Vaughan. But he's not tried to do anything fancy. He's literally just used the pace of the ball and just guided it. Because you do get, like, Jack Hamilton had a header early in the half where he's kind of had to use a bit of his own sort of force, and it went just into the keeper's hands. But I would like to think Jack Hamilton would have just done something similar also, just guiding it, and it's went over perfectly into the net. But no, I agree that Ross Millen, that I think me and Blair were speaking about it last night after the game. The right-hand side is just so lethal for a cross ball when you've got Mullen and Millen. I almost feel like I want to move Mullen over to the left, just so that you've got two sides doing it. Because Liam Dick, he had one time he overlapped somebody last night, and he actually got a good ball in the box. I'm going, well, see what you can do when you actually overlap. But I feel like at times it might be good to get somebody on that left. I know that Easton's fine, but he's somebody that's going to beat a man. He's not somebody that sticks a lot of balls in the box. So I'd like to see if maybe at some points we can maybe put Mullen over to the left, just so you've got both of them doing it. Because then they've got something to worry about at either side. Because
Yeah, you're not predictable down the right.
Right now they know that we've got a hell of a delivery. It's about to come in for the right, but at the left they're going, well, you can leave Liam Dick be because he's not going to do much going forward. So it's that. But I also thought it was good to see yet again. It was a quick kick that was scored from. It was just put the ball down, play, and they weren't set yet in their 10 because it just came from the red card. So to get that goal, that's when I thought, oh, we're going to kick on here, just the way that we started. But yeah, that didn't happen.
he actually, if you watch the highlights, he actually has to duck a little bit to get underneath the header. Like the technique there, again, just frightening. And for a guy his stature, he's really good in the air. Like, and he never really scores headers where he's, like getting up and trying to beat a man or whatever, because it's just it's never going to happen for him.
Yeah,
but he's very, very good with a header.
It's actually incredible to think that Vaughan could have maybe arguably, because there was a chance that deflected off him in the first half. There was like a shot that looked like it was going in, and then it deflected wide off him. And again, that's one that might end up in the net off Vaughan, and you're giving him the goal. And then as well, in the second half, right at the end, he had that diving header. He could have had a hat-trick of headers last night, which would be ridiculous for Lewis Vaughan to say. But again, he does, to be fair, I know a lot of people look at him in his stature, but he does get quite a lot of headed goals. Like, he scored against Queen's Park this season. He got a headed goal against Dunfermline before in the derby, when we played them at Starks Park in the Scottish Cup. Like, he's got that aspect to his game that people kind of underrate in a way. So yeah,
definitely.
I think it's worth pointing out as well.
Blair, sorry, just to that last point that you made, that he's scoring these headers. He's not going up against, he's not out jumping a centre half to do it. But that is to give him all the credit in the world for making the runs and finding the space. You don't get free headers by accident, most of the time. And that goal, I think, is the perfect example of that, where he's well aware that they're a centre half down. They waited until half time to put a second one back on again. And he's in that space. And that's a very deliberate action, and I think that he gets huge credit for these headers that he's scoring. He's in the right place at the right time, and that's a skill, that's a technique that he's got.
See, another, again, to go back to the one that Leslie used earlier, Dundee United at home. Josh Mullen puts the ball in, and then he's unmarked in the centre of the box, heads it off the post. Very unlucky that doesn't go in as a header and then gets a rebound. So fair play to him.
I think it's the biggest improvement in his game this season. His space finding, his skills and everything are out of this world, but just getting into those spaces unmanned or unwatched is just been something very different this season. It's the off the ball play, I think, is something different as well. We're all talking about great ball skills and Dylan Easton coming up, but it's the space that other players are finding that's something that I've noticed that this season is just a little bit better than it has been in previous seasons.
I think last night as well, I was going to say, just it's worth pointing out before we get to the second half, because obviously it kind of all changed in the second half. But I thought Lewis Vaughan was incredible in that first half. It's probably the best 45 minutes he's had this season. He's had some good games and stuff, but actually it was a game where Easton, it just wasn't coming off for him. Nothing was really working. I kind of across the board, it wasn't working. Hamilton, I thought, did well. He was physical and he was a focal point that we've talked about, and he was good. But I thought Vaughan's movement and he's dropping in and he's passing and moving, and the goal he scored, I thought he was absolutely superb in that first half. He really was.
I think that's a bit of the gambit with this team, is that like you're always going to have one player on their day, hopefully. Last week it was Dylan Easton with a moment of magic. A few weeks ago we had Callum Smith and Aidan Connolly come off the bench against Partick. And then you look at like the Arbroath game and you look at last night and Lewis Vaughan just delivering these moments. There's always, as the good thing about this team is there's always someone somewhere in that team that can stand up and sort of just drag them by the collar and pull it through, even if players aren't having good performances, which again we'll probably come into when we talk about the second half.
Yep. And just a final point on that. I think if you're gonna play a relatively kind of orthodox front two, I think it's Vaughan and Hamilton is the one for me that has the highest kind of ceiling.
Yeah.
So we've seen a few of them recently. So it was Vaughan and Smith at Tannadice. It was Smith and Gullen at Arbroath. Hamilton and Gullen at Hamilton a few weeks back as well. But to me, it's Vaughan and Hamilton where you're getting the best out of those two. And I think what we've not really seen, and obviously I've just listed all the different partnerships there, is we've not really had like a consistency for two players to go and actually like build up an understanding. But I think just those two guys being able to do what they do best, you get the kind of the best results out of it. And as you say, yeah, certainly first half Vaughan was excellent and was the kind of the standout. And if we
just very quickly on that point about the partnerships, I think they're the most different from each other. Yeah. So you've got kind of two ends of a spectrum. And I think the one thing that frustrates me a little bit about Jamie Gullen is that he's somewhere in between the two.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
He's not Jack Hamilton, but he's not Lewis Vaughan, and he's kind of caught in this grey area in between where he's not quite as good as Jack Hamilton at doing the Jack Hamilton things, and he's not as good as Lewis Vaughan at doing the Lewis Vaughan things. And Smith's actually very similar to that. So when you get these players playing together, they kind of almost cancel each other out because they're all trying to do the same thing. Whereas Vaughan and Hamilton, very, very, very different from each other.
Listen, we've seen a lot of that in kind of previous seasons as well, where you've got all these forwards, but none of these strikers. And you see that Smith and Gullen are very good examples of it, where listen, we've talked about this before, but like Gullen in particular, he goes wide and he goes and he gets the ball and he gets into really good spaces, and then he looks up into the box and there's nobody there because it's supposed to be him. And Smith, to an extent, is the same. Smith, I think, is slightly better at kind of swapping hats. You know, yeah. if you're playing Callum Smith as a striker, he's slightly better at retaining that kind of focus and trying to do that. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that. It's like, I suppose what it is that Jack Hamilton is the most out-and-out number 9 that we have, and Lewis Vaughan is the most out-and-out sort of old-style number 10 that we've got in terms of a forward doing that. But if we just kind of hit pause for a second, I want us to kind of think about things as it was at half-time, right? So we were 2-1 up. Ayr United were down to 10 men. Murray had obviously had to make his substitution earlier in the half. The half, 35 minutes gone when Stanton went off, and he put, excuse me, he put Vaughan kind of into Stanton's position and brought Callum Smith on. So then he went up front. At half time, was there anybody looking at that and wondering if that was the right decision? Would anybody at that point in the first half and then going into half time, would anybody have made a different change? Scott, you're nodding your head. What would your preference have been?
I mean, I turned to my dad and said that I would bring on Connolly more for it's somebody that will give you more legs that can go. It was also more to put Dylan Easton inside because I thought he wasn't getting any joy out wide. So I thought, why not try whether you put Connolly on the left or Mullen on the left? It doesn't really matter. But I would have then had Connolly on, moved Dylan Easton in one, and it means that then it's given their midfield more of a problem than their fullback because Easton wasn't getting too much joy out of that fullback, and it wasn't coming off for him. So why not try someone else? But I do also think just with Sam Stanton going off, you're losing a lot of legs in there. In terms of Lewis Vaughan does a lot of great work, but he's going to do nowhere near the running what Sam Stanton does. So it was all right, as you said, for the 10 minutes that it got us to half time. But I still think that Callum Smith does a lot of running and he's very quick and whatever. But again, he's somebody he's a forward. He's not a midfield player. So I think Connolly for me would have been the sub that I would have made. But it also didn't surprise me that Ian Murray went to a striker. He does that a lot of the time. So, and at the same time, I'm not going to argue him because he's done very well this season in terms of his subs. So he clearly thought, him and Mickey, that was the right one to do. But I personally would have brought on Connolly at the time.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably expand the discussion a little bit to include the kind of two Ayr United goals after half time as well. So Dempsey, that kind of shot from outside the box into the bottom corner, and then Chalmers, who was excellent all night, to be fair, a really, really good finish. I think you're absolutely right, Scott, in terms of like Ian Murray has been making these decisions all season. And we've talked especially recently about the fact that he goes braver than you would expect. He goes braver than most. And it's been working for him all the time. So I don't think any of us are going to start, criticising him or calling him out for doing it last night and it didn't really come off. In the way that you kind of want it to from a position of being 2-1 up with 10 men. I think with the benefit of hindsight, and I wasn't sitting in the stand saying this last night, with the benefit of hindsight, I think the change when Stanton goes off for me is probably Dan O'Reilly coming on to move Scott Brown into the midfield, because what you miss with Sam Stanton is so much, because he basically does the work of two midfielders.
Yeah, and
this is why this system that we've been using. So we've just been talking a minute ago about front twos, because we've been playing this sort of 4-1-3-2. Nobody plays that. It's really top heavy. It's like just there's no other side in this division that's routinely going, oh, just play a back four, one holding midfielder, and then just a load of attackers, because you'd get turned over constantly. It's madness, to be honest, to be doing it. And we've been talking him up for doing it for weeks. I'm not for a second rolling back on that. But I think last night was kind of the tipping point of like, oh, this is what should happen most of the time.
Well,
but
I was
Sam Stanton masks that completely. Sorry, mate, I'll let you come in a second. Sam Stanton masks that completely, because he's basically playing as your number 10 in your front three, like your forward three, and playing as a holding midfielder at the same time. He just covers both. And so you're almost, it's like you get an extra man, which is ludicrous, but he does it so well. And the greatest example of it is when you take him out last night, and then suddenly you can see you've still got the same number of players. You've still got an extra player compared to the opposition, but you can see Sean Byrne, who, as we've said, normally seems to be seeing the game in slow motion, multiple times, particularly in that second half. You can see him looking around like, where's my mate gone? And it's like, because he's almost used to playing in a 2, despite the fact that nominally there shouldn't be anyone else there. And I think that's the hole that appears. And what ends up happening with that, and actually I think both goals really show this, is that we weren't getting the benefit of our extra man, because our extra man was 20 yards behind, 20 yards further up the park than the ball was. So Ayr, I thought Dowds was excellent. I mean, if you had to play with 10 men, you really are not going to get a better setup than Logan Chalmers and the boy Amarte playing off of Anton Dowds. They were just continually, anytime they knocked the ball out of their midfield, they were winning 30 yards. Because Dowds is taking care of the defenders, Chalmers is running it, Amarte was running it 40 yards anytime he got it. We couldn't get near him. And the problem was that our extra man was, and this is not to criticise him as an individual at all, but in that system, basically it becomes Lewis Vaughan. He's kind of gone into Stanton's position, but he's just not going to do that job that Stanton does. He's going to score a hat-trick, which is great and is what you want him to do. But what you need to do, though, is then also compensate for that further down. And I think it's having the extra man that far up the park didn't really help us too much. I think if we'd been able to get O'Reilly into the defence and Brown into the midfield earlier, I think it would have given us a more kind of solid base to build from. And it's maybe then, obviously completely hypothetical, it's maybe then a game you win 3-2 as opposed to one that ends up kind of 4 each. But Robbie, sorry, come on that.
No, absolutely fine. What I was going to say is that I felt that I fully agree with what you've said there. I did not go to Firhill on the opening day of the season, so I can't really comment on what the patterns of play were like that day because I only saw the highlights. But for me, it felt like the first time since that last game of the League Cup group stages against Annan, where they had the boy Benjamin Lassant, is it? The centre midfielder, who would just pick the ball up and he would just advance with it. And I feel like you're absolutely correct with what you say. When we've not got Stanton in that system, because it's almost like having a number 10 combined with a whole midfielder. When we don't have them there, you just lose that aspect of someone being able to track as deep as Stanton can and be able to do that dirty work. And that was really last night, the first game that I feel like we've been properly exposed for playing that formation. But then again, when we moved to the 3 at the back and we get Scott Brown in, which again, I'm jumping a bit further forward because we've still got a few goals to discuss. The change there was huge. Like Scott Brown just added such a presence to that midfield, and I would love to see Scott Brown playing back more regularly in the midfield. But again, that's a decision for Ian Murray to make. And as and when that happens, I'm sure we'll know all about it because he is such a class act. So yeah.
I suspect...
Can I just jump really far forward for a second?
Yeah, of course.
So, one of our more, shall we say, statistically minded fans on the forums from the across the Atlantic reckons that Byrne may be suspended for Arbroath, and so that it may be that this is just the natural point for Brown to come back into the midfield.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to say. So that was Byrne's 6th booking, I think. And you could see when he got the booking, he was sitting with his head in his hands. I think he had a very conscious thought in his head through that game. It's like, I'm just not going to get booked. I'm not going to get booked today because it resets after that Arbroath game. So if he doesn't get booked today, doesn't get booked last night, and doesn't get booked after Arbroath, he then gets another 6 bookings to play with. But his booking categorically was definitely a stuck-on yellow card. But I think we're led to believe it's 7 days after you get your 6th booking that you're suspended. So because that was a Friday night and it's Saturday we play Arbroath. So
one of his 6 bookings was at Easter Road in the Cup.
Oh, was it?
Aye, so he's got 5 in the league.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, maybe
so,
he's not.
He didn't.
I did see him with his head in his hands. I thought it was just him going, "Oh, it's just a silly foul to make," but at the same time, it was a foul to make because otherwise they were away. I think he was more annoyed at himself being out of position, I think, than anything. But
Grab your giant blue Stetson and get cracking on that one, Mr. Tex Rover.
For that,
I've-
I think, sorry, to your point, Leslie, I think you're absolutely right. I think if Sean Byrne is suspended, then I think that's exactly what you'll see, is that Dan O'Reilly comes back into the defence, Scott Brown goes back into the midfield, and it's possibly the end of the Scott Brown as defender experiment, which over the piece has been wildly successful. But I think in Anton Dowd's last night, you really saw how that could be exploited, and it was more the secondary stuff than anything else. So primarily Dowds was going up against Murray, but you can see then it's Scott Brown. He's able to do the one-on-one stuff pretty well, surprisingly well for a midfielder. He wins his headers, he wins his tackles, he tracks his man. But when Dowds is taking Murray out of position and then the second ball's coming in, you can see that's where Brown's maybe not quite so hot in the positioning. I think it's Dempsey's goal where he's almost not quite, but he's almost kind of keeping himself out of the road. He's got the opportunity to block it, and he's just not. I mean, it's a split second, and he's just not quite quick enough to be where he needs to be. So yeah, I suspect we'll see Dan O'Reilly back in.
I'm not so sure. I mean, O'Reilly's under contract till January, so he's only. I mean, Arbroath will be technically his last game because he'll be out of contract by the time the Pars come round, I believe. The fact that he dropped him, put him on the bench, and hasn't played him again, I'm beginning to wonder whether he's no part of the plan. Like whether he's actually.
I would agree with that, Blair.
He's decided that he's got money to spend and he's got other places he wants to spend it. With Keith Watson coming back into fitness as well, he's got Dylan Corr on the bench. Does he really want another centre half taking up a space on the bench? I'm no sure. To agree with your earlier point, it's 100% the substitution that I would have made. It's also 100% the substitution that pretty much every manager, as you've alluded to, in the championship would have made. But Murray's kind of brave way of doing things, it's paid off way more than it hasn't. So you can't criticise the guy. I joked a few weeks ago about Sean Byrne playing in a midfield three with Sam Stanton on either side of him. But as you've said quite rightly, it was glaringly obvious once he was gone, that gap. My concern with the two holding midfielders, as we go back to the only defeat we've had in the league this season at Airdrie, where he played the two holding midfielders, and the gap between front and back was massive. We never ever got going in that game. But I felt like the change that Murray made with a red card, it kind of changed the flow of the game a little bit more than it could have done. Like for me, it's one each. They're down to 10 men. You're at home. Keep the ball. Like you've got a long game. You've got a lot of very good attackers on the park. I just felt like we should have. I think Brown into the midfield would have just given us the opportunity, because you're going to have a lot more possession with 10 men. Do you know what I mean?
Just going to correct you there, Blair. It was 2-1 at halftime. Mind.
No, I'm talking about the substitution. He made the substitution with Sam Stanton.
So, aye. All right. I thought you meant at halftime.
No. When he made the substitution, I actually don't think it was the right substitution in the first place. Like, I think it just kind of. I suppose actually the red card hadn't happened, so that maybe doesn't come into the run of play quite the same. But it felt like we never really got a foothold in the game. We never got a hold of the ball. An uncharacteristically poor Sean Byrne just never got going. It's such a strange kind of that second 45 minutes are really strange. And the goal that as you've kind of got to them scoring that goal from the edge of the box, it was just we stood off and Murray stood off, and like Dabrowski seemed to go down quite late. I don't want to be critical of him. Well, we're going to be, but I don't want to be critical of him on that goal. I kind of felt like he could have got a hand to it. It just didn't seem to. It was a very big Kev kind of performance. Even the first goal, actually, to an extent.
I think they were the opposite of how there was the chances for like Chris Mockery last week for Dundee United, where there were sort of low shots that Kev parries out wide. It kind of felt like it was the opposite of those last week. But again, I'm very loath to criticise.
No, totally. He just seemed a bit flat-footed last night. Like The one thing we've always talked about is his ability to get down. Like for a big goalie, he gets down really, really well. And like when you see the save last week, he springs. Do you know what I mean? It's this big, huge stretch and dive. And last night he just seemed to it was different. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just better.
I'm going to ask something about that. I'm going to come in and ask something. Those of you who are in the ground, he took a knock at the end of the Dundee United game. And I'm not trying to make excuses for everything he did, but is there any possibility he was maybe not quite 100% and that just took that wee edge off his athleticism?
I don't think it's the worst suggestion to make.
Yeah, I don't think there was any kind of visible evidence of that, and in the same way that there was at Tannadice, where he was very clearly he was holding his side and holding his hip. There wasn't any of that, but I mean, it wouldn't be a huge leap to say that he's still kind of feeling the effects. But I know exactly what you mean, Blair. It's like if you had to kind of rank Kevin Dabrowski's abilities, like what is he very best at? I think at the top of that, you'd be like, well, yeah, getting down to these shots towards the bottom corner, and as you say, Robbie, two into his left-hand side that he did very, very, particularly Louis Moults, that was moving around all over the place. And then for whatever reason, yeah, last night it just wasn't there. But I mean, far from the only Rovers player who was kind of off their usual standard. Sorry, Carol, and you come.
Yeah, I was like, Ayr wasn't, I don't want to say they were catching us on the break, but they were definitely trying to slow us right down and then just spring off. And I think Dabrowski last night just didn't have that spring. And I don't know if that's because on the inside match day, you could see him limp down the tunnel with Dundee United. And I just don't think he had that spring to get down low. And maybe subconsciously, it's like not, because the Ayr were definitely just, we'll slow them down, and then bang, we'll go. But not catching on the break, not drawing us back in, but just slowing everybody down. And I had to remind myself through the second half, we've got an extra player here, but you cannot tell. You cannot tell at all.
No,
and I think that was the tactic, just bring us in, slow us down, and then spring off it.
Yeah, I apologise. I cannot remember who said it. It was only about 20 minutes ago. Someone said last season, we didn't really score any goals in the box. They were all coming from outside the box. That was exactly what Ayr United did to us last night.
Yeah.
Anton Dowd's a very, very good striker, but they were using him in the way that we've used Jack Hamilton to best effect this season, which is he's the focal point, and then you've got your good players coming off him. And I thought Logan Chalmers in particular was excellent. And as much as Amarte on the other side was maybe more kind of visibly kind of bringing them up the park, the quality that Chalmers has got, and I think the third goal, the one that he scores, I think we had gone to the back three by that point, which again, very early, very, very bold. And he just absolutely takes Liam Dick completely out the game, which there's not many players in the division who just got that level of technical ability.
How we talk about Sean Byrne seeing things in slow motion. I think with Chalmers, it's like I use this analogy a wee bit, but it's like it's watching someone playing against someone else on FIFA when they've got lag, because it's just like he just starts off one place and then he just appears another. Just like it's almost like he's just a second ahead of where that play actually is. Fair play, looks a brilliant player. Just again a really, really good performance from him last night, and I think it's quite important to give credit where credit is due, because a lot of that is down to how Lee Bullen and Ayr set up. So yeah.
And Leslie, I think you wanted to make a point on this. Sorry, I think it was a very good point that you made in terms of both Logan Chalmers and Anton Dowds being loan players who are at Ayr United.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't really take away from the fact that defensively we were rotten. However, if you're a Dundee United fan and you're watching those highlights, having not scored against Queen's Park and not scored against us, you're watching that and you're wondering why Logan Chalmers has been loaned out. If you're a Partick fan who's seen an arse collapse after Brian Graham comes off and Tommy Adeloy comes on, you're seeing that and you're asking why is Anton Dowds been loaned out. So, I think you have to realise that as well. I mean, that's kind of our two kind of main title rivals have loaned out an attacking player to another team where they're going on and playing brilliantly, and that's taking away an option that they can have. So I think it's important to recognise that too.
I was just going to say that it's absolutely baffling like Scott and I were talking about this in the club last night, but I mean, Dundee United last week are screaming out for Logan Chalmers to come on. Absolutely screaming out for him. Partick I've gone with, what's his face, Adaloy up front.
You'd have doubts over Adelaide every single day.
Baffling. Like, and not just that, why would you loan them to teams in the same league? It's just, and to be fair to Ayr United, they're flipping coming up quids up in this. Like, they've got two players who, the best two players in their team, and they're not even their own players. And but then I suppose they're both not able to play against the teams that they come from. But a really strange setup. I mean, I agree with what you said, Duncan. I thought Anton Dowds last night was brilliant. He was really good. He did everything Jack Hamilton does, but against us, and we had no answer for it. And Scott Brown in particular, I know we've given him a lot of credit, but I mean, you've got to be balanced. You've got to do it the other way as well. Like, he gave Scott Brown an absolutely torrid night. Like, Brown did not get close to him, winning headers, bullying him, and yeah, we just had no answer for it at all.
No, again, I said last night, I don't know that any of that back four have played as bad individually, not as bad, as poorly, compared to their own standards, as they did last night. At any point, like any of them as individuals, as bad as all of them more or less did last night. Ross Millen, I don't think was dreadful by any means, but still, the amount of running that Amarte's doing down that side, you need more. And then Murray and Brown never look comfortable really at any point. And then you probably have to include Sean Byrne in that as well, because it's all those goals basically are coming from the space between the defence and the midfield, and we just never got to grips with it. Never really worked out a plan of how to deal with that. And I think that's where your four and then your one in front that only works when Sam Stanton's there. I think we needed a quicker adaptation to that. We kind of watched the same thing happen too many times.
I think as a club, it might be worth mentioning as well just now that I know that there's sort of plans, and it's been mentioned, touched upon before. This is really where you need a club to have a reserve team that can just be made up of both community lads and to bed in. So your likes of, for instance, like straight away, you would have Adam Masson, Callum Hanna going in, playing there straight away every week in terms of reserve football. But then you get guys like Ross Matthews and potentially Keith Watson, even if he's like in the next few weeks, they can come in back and play in that. And that's really where like other teams in the league do have sort of reserve setups and we don't. And I think that's the difficulty for us, because it's in this period of transition as a club that really that's where we've got that difficulty. Because ideally, if you can bring on Ross Matthews in there, then you've got that option as well. Rather than sort of saying, Ross Matthews, it's his first game, and I know that he's had a couple of pre-season games, but he's not had many. So how's he going to handle going into a sort of high-octane fixture like that? But again, it's something that the club are working on, something that the club know about, and that they've got their own plans that they'll be no doubt looking at. So yeah.
Thought it was really interesting. Go on, Les.
On you go, Blair, and I'll come in after, because this will take it in a different direction.
All right, okay. So just really quickly, I'd spoken to Scott about this in the club again last night, but the one word that Ian Murray used in his pre-match was complacency, and how we couldn't let complacency slip in. And for me, last night was complacent all over the pitch. I think them going down to 10 almost heightened it, though. Like, it was just it was like we just thought we were going to just kind of cruise to victory, really. Like, we stood off them and we never really got kind of going. We never took control of the game in a way that we really have this season. Like, it's the one thing you could actually say about this team is that we take the game to the opposition. We've talked about it. Second half at Dundee United was a perfect example. We go at teams. And last night, it was like they just thought we don't need to go at them. Yeah. And they absolutely needed to go at them.
And that, I would add to that as well, 100% fed into the atmosphere, certainly in the South Stand. I said before at that Partick game, nobody lost their rag. last night you were hearing all the football managers come out, and I get that everyone's entitled to their opinions, but when you've got people advising players left, right, on centre what they should be doing, personally for me, I find that infuriating because they're professional players and they know what they're doing. It's their job, and it's not for a want to try. None of them are going out and maliciously sabotaging our team. But at the same time, I can fully understand why people are frustrated when you see, like, for instance, the incident in the second half where two players collide together and the Ayr player comes out the other side with the ball. That was just our luck last night. And again, it'll be symptomatic. There'll be explanations for it. There'll be data that'll be there that the club will no doubt use and be able to like look back at the video analysis and go through it all. But yeah, I feel like just after that Dundee United game, it was such a high. You said right at the start, Blair, hangover. And that was definitely what it felt like. But at the end of the day, there does need to be perspective, a lot of perspective about where we're at and how things are. But we'll come back to that when we're talking after the rest of the game.
Lesley, I think you had a point to make there.
I was just going to say something very briefly, which is, as the start went off, and we're talking about the kind of big hole in the midfield, there was a perfectly fit, match-sharp senior midfielder who we've been talking for an hour and have not mentioned once, Scott McGill. I had to actually go back on my phone and check to see that he'd actually been on the bench. Because the other logical thing that you could have done just to kind of shore up that midfield, if Matthews isn't fit, is pop Scott McGill in there. And okay, he's not like Sam Stanton level of excellent, but he's perfectly solid, perfectly functional, and he might just given us that wee bit of extra kind of control in the middle.
I think it's Ian Murray's kind of default mode seems to be to try and like thrive off the chaos almost.
Yeah.
Which has worked really, really well so far. So it's not a criticism at all, but it's in a case like last night where you have an advantage. Literally, you have an extra man that playing a straight bat should actually work in your favour. We almost over gambled on trying to get all the forward players on and left ourselves a little bit.
Have you ever seen the film The Big Short?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like the section in that where it's Selena Gomez and the professor at economics in the casino, and they're talking about the hot hand fallacy, where like your luck's in, everything seems to be working. This has been working time and time before, so we'll just keep doing this. And that was kind of what last night felt like. We know that this works because we've done it so many times before. We'll maybe not use Scott McGill, we'll maybe not go to Ross Matthews, etc. And that kind of sort of backfired on us last night. But again, we can learn from it. So that's the main thing.
And then to be fair, I mean, you can see a world where rather than it going to 2-2, if the Rovers get to 3-1, you could start then to really, with that side, really start to kind of, maybe knock another couple in. Not really the Rovers' way, and it's certainly not how it panned out. But, I mean, you can see the theory. There's nothing, again, I think it's worth repeating, we're having this conversation with the benefit of hindsight, and it's based on what happened after that. We weren't, having a lot of these thoughts at the time, but it's definitely, it's what you get with Ian Murray. Yeah. And
you can't praise him for it one week and then criticise him.
Yeah, 100%.
That's exactly it. If you want to talk about credit in the bank, bear in mind we also didn't lose this game. We still took a point, and when you think that we beat Ayr United at Somerset, so 4 points from the first two games against Ayr, you would take that at the start of the season, let alone all the other points we've got from everybody else. That's like, this is the price you pay. That's the chance you take, and he's well up on his balance. Let's move on just a little bit then. So the what would it have been? 3 was the penalty kick.
First equaliser for us, was it?
Yeah.
No, the second.
I get no idea, man. I really don't. It was a penalty kick that Jamie Gunn did really well to win. It's a lovely little bit of footwork.
He's pretty decent at that for us. Slaughtering him for being out on the move, drifting out to the wing. He's doing all right for getting penalties for us because he got the one against Queen's Park as well.
It's difficult to win penalties out on the wing, to be fair. But no, sorry, he does very, very well. He goes back to goal, he brings it down well, kind of turns one defender, and then it's one of these where you can't even really criticise the defender who trips him. He's just not He's just not quite quick enough with his feet. It's definitely a penalty. I have to tell you, I had a horrible feeling about that penalty. I was like,
Oh, aye.
this isn't the evening. This
When
like,
you see the keeper moving about in the goals and you're thinking, oh, nah.
I was like, nah, I'm not convinced about this. But once again, in a recurring theme, I was instantly proved wrong, and quite nicely so.
See, as soon as it went to 3-3, you're thinking, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. We're getting another goal in the last 5 minutes. We're going to win this 4-3. Like, straight, me and my mate were giddy with excitement. We were like, oh, can't I believe it? We're going to do it again. This is going to be hilarious. This is going to be a great laugh. Dundee United fans will be raging.
I know it's what we're about to get onto, but I actually did think that, and I still think we would have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
had it not been for that which is about to be named, I genuinely think, and even when that did happen, and I was like, there's still another couple of chances in this game because there was still time.
Yeah.
Like,
that was one thing. Basically, after every single thing that happened in the second half, I was like, there must only be 5 minutes left. Yeah. And there was still loads of time. I mean, even the penalty with 10 minutes plus stoppage time after that. And I think that was the overriding feeling on the ground, was like, you know, we've done this before. We're going to go and do it again. And that in itself, to be honest, is probably a bit of kind of complacency sneaking in, and a little bit of hubris, almost. Because very quickly, Ayr United get themselves back in front. Now, I think the other thing with this, to add to the feeling of, oh, it's happening again, Lee Bullen, and I mean, again, he gets a load of credit for the way that they've managed that game. Get a point away at Starks Park, down to 10 men. But he was doing his level best. Like, we've spoken already, throughout the course of this podcast. Amarte is absolutely running the show on the left. Logan Chalmers is the best player on the park on the right. And Anton Dowds is winning absolutely everything in the middle. And in fairly short order, Lieberland takes them all off. Yeah. And I was like, he's Veldmaning this again. Like, why did teams keep doing this against us? And Akeem Rose comes on, and I'm like, not heard great things about this guy. Not convinced there's much to worry about with him. I was like, well, what's this? He's trundling one for 25 yards. That's all right. That's fine. Don't worry about, oh no, hang on, it's 4-3. Yeah. I don't know if anyone wants to venture an explanation as to what they think happened here.
Blair, do you want to go first? Because I can see you.
Honestly, I honestly could have cried. It was so bad. And it's one of them as well, like, do you know what? There's nothing you can say to him. There's nothing you can say about him, because he knows. Do you know what I mean? You could do that 100 times and that never happens again. But it's not very often that I see the Rovers concede a goal where I think to myself, I could have saved it. But it was utterly awful. And he knows that. That's not, that's not coaching or mentality, or it's a mistake. And do you know what? The one thing I'll say for him, there was 13 or 14 other Rovers players on that pitch last night who all made a mistake at least once. Yeah. Ian Murray made a mistake at least once. Every single one of them made a mistake. It just so happens when you're a goalkeeper that your mistakes are so much worse than everyone else's. But there's no way anybody could be looking at that and thinking that's systematic of anything other than a bad night at the office.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That is... fully agree with that. And I would say that to Kev, just directly. You're going to have games where you make wonder saves and you keep us in the match. And you've done that for us before. Last night was, regardless of whether we win or whether we lose and mistakes happen or you make your wonder saves, you've got to reset and you've just got to go again, because that's just the way of it. We're exactly the same point as we started the night. I think that if you'd told us beforehand that if you look at Queen's Park as a side that were seen as a bit weapon boys almost at this point, and then you look at Ayr, who are a team that are a bit on the up, and you told us that we would end the night in the same place, fantastic. But just got to get on with it and just move on, because it's happened and you're a good goalkeeper, so just head up and just move forward. And I think that was the response in general from the fans. It was naturally, it's infuriating. Nobody's going to hide away from that, but nobody needs to tell him that. Nobody needs to tell him that, because he knows it himself. So just pick himself up and just move forward, because it was just
just fundamentally these things happen. You see it happen at World Cups. You see goalkeepers.
Hugo Lloris did it in the World Cup final for France.
It's just, and it's that thing. I don't know if it was maybe a case of we were walking down Pratt Street. My dad said after the game, and I thought it could very well be. It's almost the shot is so tame. He's thinking about what he's doing next. He's almost thinking like, right, once I've got this, I'm gonna see if I can get Ross away on that right, and it's just that little split second because he gets behind it as much as anything, and it just I mean even if you don't gather that in, I think 5 times out of 10 it rolls wide. It's just so unlucky that it does it.
Just slithers off his glove into the corner like in slow motion. You're like that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, it's one of these where you almost want to run out the stand and just run down and boot it away. It trickles over the line so slowly.
But the body language after was interesting. Sorry, Robbie.
I was just going to say, run down the stand and give him a fucking cuddle.
But that was the body language afterwards. That I think a couple of seasons ago it would have just went flat. But everyone went, we can still get this. And I think even the fans had that. Okay, we might not win this, but we're not going to lose this. Let's go. And I'm going to pick up on Louis Vaughan. The last couple of matches has been like a little kid at Christmas with a football. Every time we go behind, he's back there going, come on. I mean, I think he's on a personal mission to try and become Rovers' top goal scorer in his tenure because he is on it. And that what was different last night is even though Kev made a bit of a boo-boo and it slithered off his glove, nobody went nuts. Nobody turned against him. Everyone went, okay, we've still got 5 minutes. It's the golden hour. Let's go.
That's it. And as you say, Blair, everybody made mistakes in that game. You know, there was nobody who came out of that with a kind of perfect performance. But what we did get out of it was a hat trick from Lewis Vaughan. And I mean, certainly I think it absolutely does help that we've had all these late goals recently because there was still a lot of belief in the ground and you could see that in the players as well. And the surprising thing, if anything, is like the quality of that goal and the kind of measured nature of it. You kind of expect if you're going to score a 91st minute equaliser and a 4 each that's going to be a Rami and after a corner kick or something. But again, not to repeat everything we've said previously about substitutes and all that kind of stuff, but the quality of that little chip into the box from Aidan Connolly and then because that again, I just don't think there's very many players in that position who manage to play such a good ball into that. And then the header
itself,
excellent as well. Shades of Grant Anderson with that one.
Yeah.
But Scott, give us your thoughts on that one as well, please. This will be the first late goal you've got a chance to celebrate in person.
Without waking anybody in the apartment, it was so just. I almost didn't think it was nothing was coming. I was mid going, what are you doing, Connolly? And then, it's in the net. and then just everyone's turning around going, what is going on? Like, it's just, as you say, like, obviously it wasn't quite partic of we've, like, take the lead late on, but it was still just the buzz of making sure that, right, now I'm certain we're going to get something for the game. And just because of how poorly it all went, you're just going, right, get a point, get out of here, have Christmas, let's reset. There was just so many things, but that goal just, as I say, like, I was just baffled it even went in. I think the keeper kind of looked behind as if like, that's not going in. And then, it is. Everyone, even the Ayr fans, I think they were half of them were already still celebrating, thinking they were winning the game, and then somehow it ended in the back of the net. But no, fair play to Louis for even just trying to do his utmost to just get it on target, and it's managed to go in. But no, it was just baffling, that whole goal, to be honest.
I was going to say the groan when Connolly played, just what you're saying. He plays that little chip and there was an audible in the stand, and then he headers it and it goes in. But can I just say special mention to the Rovers fans who clearly were at their first game last night and left with about 5 minutes to go. Like, guys, have you not been watching this season? Where have you been? I mean, there was genuinely, it must have been about 30 or 40 folk went down those stairs and left before the final whistle. I'm like...
To quote classic Christina Beattie, this isn't luck, it's just Raith Rovers. And I think that applies to everything about last night.
That's it, and it's. I mean, to talk about the game as a whole, like that, I think is almost certainly that must be the poorest we've played all season.
Oh,
Because we get beat at Airdrie. Didn't actually play particularly badly at Airdrie. Certainly the
We
defence
played better
were
in the
fine.
Airdrie game than we did against Arbroath and we did last night, I felt.
Yeah, that's. I think you're exactly right. I thought we weren't as good against Arbroath, and we're very fortunate to get the win. But with that, I mean, you're playing. If that's the poorest you can, well, not necessarily the poorest you can play, they could conceivably get worse. But if that's the poorest you have played all season, and you've still scored 4 goals, and you've still managed to take a point, that's really not a bad place to be at all. And I think, Robbie, did you say we're 3 points off last season's total points?
Yeah, we're something like that. But to go back to the Dick Campbell, we've got to be safe from relegation now, eh? So let's just enjoy that, lads.
Blair was banding that around the club last night.
I was raising a glass to Championship football. It's safe. We're safe, boys.
Something else to say on a slightly more serious note is, and we touched on it earlier, but outside of Dundee United and Partick, I don't think there's as strong as an attacking lineup in the Championship, apart from ourselves, as Ayr. You know, if that's Arbroath, if that's Morton, even if that's Inverness, I'm not convinced any other team is going to score 4 against us when we play as abominably as that in defence.
I think it's
all credit to Ayr, and you know the recruitment they do from down south. You know, these guys, Echoe at right back as well, Senga, you know, Amarty, the guys that they're finding and bringing up. I mean, as I say, you know, I know some of the Ayr fans grumble about Lee Boolan's substitutions, but they're doing something right in terms of recruitment.
They improved so much when McGinty went off, though. It was actually a joke. Like, they looked so much better when McGinty just was not on the pitch.
The boy Jack Young in the middle of the park was very good as well. When you see a guy who's, you know, that size and he's got number 46 on his back, you think, right, this guy can't be any use.
But
you know,
special mention from Graham Meldrum, though, as well. He just said in the WhatsApp, don't forget, guys, Diddy teams race their game against the league leaders. So that's from your resident Ayr homeboy.
I was joking last night. The boy in midfield, I think it's Young, but I wondered whether there was a wee apostrophe and then a double apostrophe after the 4 and the 6. You know, whether it was 4'6", because he was tiny in the middle of that park, but he was good. He did everything we didn't do, and everything that actually Sean Byrne normally gives you, that kind of slow the game down, get the foot on the ball, kind of spread the play about. I think Ayr deserve a lot of credit. Actually, they were good, and the word Robbie used was context. Do you know what I mean? When you look at that game, it was Robert. We weren't very good. We really weren't very good. Mistakes all over the place, conceding goals we shouldn't be conceding, and making life way too hard for ourselves. But we are still 5 points clear. Dundee United dropped points away to Queen's Park. Like, that's got to get mentioned at some point. That's rotten for them. So to come out of that with a point,
like so Ian Murray said in his interview afterwards, you know, it's like even when teams go down to 10 men in this division, they're still decent sides. It's something I remember we talked about a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the Arbroath game, where it's like, for me, I don't think there's any actively bad sides in the division. I think there are sides who have different deficiencies. And like Arbroath in particular, I think are quite a limited side going forward. Ayr United, I think, are the opposite. Their defence, you can see they don't have real standout defenders, particularly if one of them's going to get himself sent off after 40 minutes or whatever it was. But there's quality throughout all these sides. And actually, the one thing I would have said before last night was, well, probably except Queen's Park, who actually seem to have dipped below that. They looked like they had dipped into actively a poor side for this level. And then they've gone and kept a clean sheet at home to Dundee United, which, I mean, I'd just written that game off. I mean, Scott, you said it last week. You're like, they've got 2 tough games coming up. And I was a bit like, well, 1 tough game. Like, they've got Thistle at Tannadice will be tricky, but they'll run all over the top of Queen's Park. And, obviously they didn't. So, again, I think that's the thing that going into last night, if you'd said, look, you're coming out of this with no bigger or no smaller a gap to Dundee United, I'd have taken that before kickoff.
Yeah,
you know, 2
100%.
draws, or we both win, or we both lose. Even it's like, aye, I'll take that. You know, I think right now, Ayr United at home probably is a tougher assignment than Queen's Park away based on recent form.
Well, bearing in mind, Dundee United only sneaked past themselves to get a 1-0 win against Ayr at home.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it was scrappy as anything. That Fotheringham goal,
yeah,
really scrappy.
Well, again, just to go back, I think the thing is just to reset, and I think that's universal. It goes for the squad, whether it's the formation in terms of where we're starting from, whether it's going to be the fan base in general, just as we as supporters, just keep the perspective on where we're at. If you told us that we were 5 points 5 points top clear at the table at Christmas, then you would be laughing. So to be in that place, bearing in mind there's been a lot of bold statements that have been made outside of us. Dundee United's chairman saying that they're going to get automatically promoted back up and relegation isn't a worry. You've already got people, and people will come for us as well. That's going to be coming as well. I put out BBC Sports Scotland had put out that article about why Raith Rovers should be worried about what's happened with Queen's Park. Should we? Like, completely different context of the situation. I had someone quote tweeting me that when we were 4-3 last night, like saying, "Oh, that's foreshadowing if I ever saw it." And then I replied straight away because we'd just gone 4-0, and I was like, "We're the same place as we started the night." One bad game is not a write-off for our season. I think it's just one of those ones where we just had a bad night, just move forward, and we've still got a very, very good team, and we've got every reason for being optimistic heading into this new year. So just go to. It'll be a very different game against Arbroath, I feel.
It's a measure of where we are as well. Because see that game last night, if that was last season, we would have, if we had a podcast at that point, we'd be on here going, "Oh my God, that was amazing. We finished 4 each. Like, that was incredible." And we're on here. And like it was Duncan said as well, we didn't actually lose this game. Like we've dissected it to pieces and we've come away with a point. Like it's a measure of where we're at, though, that's a bad day at the office.
I'm just wondering if I'm in this like positivity echo chamber now, where I'm just like, nah, it's all going to be fine. We're all going to be great. And then I'll speak to someone in the stand like, "What are you on about? I hate life." I'm like, Jesus.
But if that's as bad as it gets, sign me up. Like you'd take that. And that, as you say, Blair, 8 goals in a game like that, normally you could easily go 2 or 3 seasons. You think of a Barry Smith side or even a John McGlynn side, you'd maybe go 2 or 3 seasons, you get one game like that, and you'd be like, "Whoa."
If it's a John McGlynn side, we're on the other side of it. Look at the Hamilton Accies game at home, where Kai Fotheringham hit the bar in the final minute.
Yeah.
I spoke to my mum on the phone this morning, and I said to her, she says, "Oh, how was the football last night?" I was like, "Oh, it was crap." She said, "Oh, did they get beat?" I was like, no, they drew. She said, "What was the score?" Like 4 each. She went, "Oh, wow, loads of goals." I'm like, yeah, actually, with a bit of perspective, it wasn't actually all that bad.
Yeah, we've definitely been spoiled for entertainment. We've talked about value for money on the half-season tickets. Certainly the first half of the season, we've had plenty entertainment. It feels like every week you're getting a game that normally you would have to wait a good couple of years to get another one, and it's just happening all the time.
That's 15 goals in the last 2 home games.
My mate, who he doesn't get to games regularly because he plays Saturday amateur football, and he said in the last 3 games that he's gone to, what is it? We've scored 11, and he's seen us concede 7 in the last 3 games because he went to the Derby at East End, the Partick game, and then last night.
Tremendous.
Last night was just a palate cleanser for the sweet stuff that's to come.
I mean, it's so much better to do it this way. Imagine if you're a Dundee United fan. You've conceded 7 goals all season, but about 80% of what you're watching is just Declan Gallagher mopping things up and occasionally Louis Moulton, Kai Fotheringham putting a tap in away. This is much more exciting.
We've literally conceded as many goals in the last 2 home games as Dundee United have conceded all season.
And we're still top of the league.
Which is going to make it all the funnier if we do win the league. If we did win the league, it would be hysterically funny. Like, just aye.
They've also.
Like,
sorry, Duncan. Just quickly, they've also, I've noticed in the last 3-4 games, they've had almost 20 shots in every single one of them. I think they didn't have as many, obviously, against us, but that other than us, they've had 20 odd shots with more than double figures on target. So they're clearly just not taking their chances, which, great, they're not taking their chances, but I've still got a feeling they've got a 5-6 coming at some point, because they've done it they went to Partick and put 5 past them. So it's just a case of they're not getting their luck, I suppose, but I mean, it's brilliant to watch that they're still struggling against Queen's Park. I mean, they've got...
When did they play Dunfermline for that 5-6 you're talking about, Scott? When did they play Dunfermline? that would just be sweet.
I think as well, it's important to remember that the January transfer window is coming up, and let's be honest, Dundee United, they're undoubtedly going to go in there, and even if they've not got the money, they're going to spend the money. Like, there's been rumours floating about that they're going to get Simon Murray in, who, let's be honest, aside from being horrendously ugly, is also exceptionally good at scoring goals against us. So yeah, I just feel like they'll go out and buy a few players, and it'll be interesting to see what movement we make in January. But we should still have complete belief in this squad. And as I said before, there's always one player in our squad that's going to have the potential to do what Lewis Vaughan did last night, Dylan Easton did last week, or the 2 weeks before when we had Connolly and Smith come on and change the game. So yeah, not the best day at the office, but still a good situation overall, I think, is the fair summary to put.
Yeah, are they still paying that Australian goalkeeper?
He's still on their books.
4 or 5 bags a week to do absolutely nothing. Because I think offload him, that's a worrying amount of money they could reinvest. But yeah, very funny in the meantime. So let's move on, because we are racking up the time once again. Although I think, to be fair, we had a lot to talk about in this one.
You're not getting a 48-minute podcast out of that game, let's be honest.
No, we nearly had to break it down into chapters. Do the first half today and the second half tomorrow.
I'll just put at the exits outro titles for this, I'll just put directed by Peter Jackson, and then that'll be us.
Yeah, I remember I said last week that the podcast we did was a minute longer than Casablanca. That's a real good use of everybody's time. So yeah, you're welcome. Right, so very quickly then, let's wrap up today. I mean, a quick big question, please. And seeing as it's the time of year, what I would like to know, please, is quite simply, and you can again interpret this any way you like, what would you like for Christmas? And Carol, we'll start with you, please.
Well, luckily living in Catalonia, you get 3 chances at presents at Christmas. You get your Cagatillo, your Papa Noel, and your Tres Reyes Magos. So we'll start with the Cagatillo, which translated is a pooping log. This is a log that you feed over the Christmas period, and then on the 24th of December, children will hit this log with another stick, demanding it poops them presents. And this is usually a small thing. So I think I want my Cagatillo to poop me a new Rovers website. It's still coming. Papa
Don't
Noel...
tell John Greer about this.
This is real, by the way. I've seen this before, and it is frightening.
It is. It's really, yeah. I gave John Greer a little mini one. He's got his own little mini one that's been feeding over Christmas. So it's going to hopefully poop him some presents on the 24th. Papa Noel to bring Rovers a nice new defender would be nice. A bit of a solid defence. And then I think I want from the 3 Kings flights home and tickets to a Rovers game to spend some time with you guys in person.
Fantastic. That sounds very good. And 3 presents at Christmas as well. That's good. Finally, a reason that living in Barcelona would be better than living in Kirkcaldy. Right, Scott, you next, please. What would you like? What would you like Santa Claus to bring you?
I think I spoke to Blair about this last night as well. I'm hoping for Christmas Day to wake up and see a tweet in the morning of, oh, we have 3 players to be announced as signing new deals of Lewis Vaughan, Dylan Easton, and Ross Matthews. Just get them all signed up. I mean, Stanton, obviously the news about Stanton was brilliant, and I just think that Christmas Day would be just that little bit sweeter if you're able to celebrate with your family and whatever, and then you're just seeing that tweet come up saying that we've got 3 new players. Maybe 3 is a bit much to ask for, but at least get a couple of them signed up, because I just get that little bit of fear that the days closer to January, there could be teams sniffing. Well, there is teams sniffing about Dylan Easton. That's just obvious. There's teams inquiring about outside of the Old Firm, basically. So But no, 3 new contracts, please.
I'd certainly be happy with that. Right, Robbie, you next, please.
All I want for Christmas is a 2-goal win.
Fair enough. I think that would be nice. In fairness, that is wild that we're at Christmas and we've not had a single game decided by more than a single goal either way. That can't have happened very often. I notice Arbroath haven't drawn a game yet. They're the anti-us. All of their games are decided.
That was us
by,
last season. It took
significant
ages
margins.
till we got a draw.
Yeah. All right, Leslie, you next, please. What's your Christmas wish?
Right, well, I'm going to continue the kind of global theme. And so Carol's told us about Christmas in Catalonia, and I want to talk a bit about Christmas in Japan, where owing to a misunderstanding and an administrative blunder, a department store a couple of years ago had a window display of Santa Claus being crucified.
Oh.
So, I don't want to crucify anybody. I absolutely do not want to crucify anybody, but I do think that there are areas in the squad where we can make a few improvements in the January transfer window. One of those is at the left back area, and I think there are one of 2 Lewises I'd love in an ideal world to see us try and bring in. One of them being he who loves to dry the ball with a towel and then chuck it into the box, Lewis Strap, or the other being Lewis Stevenson. I mean, that would be a lovely Dave Neary type story, the one club man who's won everything with his club, coming down to the championship and helping a team win a league. So I would love to see one of the Lewises at left back, and for purely selfish reasons, I would love to see us bring Kyosuke Tagawa in on loan from Hearts for the second half of the season to bring some physicality and pace and goals. All of which will mean that we can keep the players that we have, we don't crucify anybody, and we strengthen what we have.
I'm with you on that. Not so much the department store window element of it, but the kind of I'd like to see
podcast here.
Yeah, another option at left back I think would be nice. I think Liam Dick's a very competent defender, but I think games like last night in particular, a more attacking minded option would be handy. But yeah, someone like Lewis Stevenson, who's so much experience, certainly would go a long way in a kind of title race like this one. And Blair, you're the last one to go, please. What would you like for your Christmas?
I was going to say the beauty of this is that you've all asked for things that I would like as well, so I don't need to ask for them, because if you're getting it for Christmas, I kind of am too. So for me, I'm just going to say more merch, please, club. Because I said this before, I'm basically at a point where they can wrap up a bag of dog crap and put a Rovers badge on it, and I'm buying 3 of them. Loving it. It's just great. The variety of stuff that they're coming out with now is glorious.
That whiskey went so quickly. Like, it was incredible. Like, it was less than like an hour. Like, we were doing our podcast at the time, and then by the time we'd finished, I was like, oh, by the way, the whiskey's gone. It's just
great.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure there will be more to come on that front. Certainly, there's another aspect of the club are doing really good work. All right, excellent. Well, listen, on behalf of everybody here at the podcast, I would just once again like to take the opportunity to thank you all for watching and for listening, and also just to wish you all the very best for the festive period. So keep an eye on this week's Inside Match Day from Grace and Ben at the football club, because there is a chance you might see a couple of familiar faces. And we will be back presumably on Thursday night with a preview of our Arbroath's visit next Saturday. So thank you again, and have a very Merry Christmas.